I don't know how desperate you need to be before you just start lying to and attacking your own fans, but whatever that line is, Rings of Power just reached it. But first, do you remember this scene from the trailer?
You have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not seen what I have seen.
The interesting part is they seem to have cut that scene just before the end of the script, and we can get that bit from Galadriel over here. Yes, on her Instagram, she says, "You have not seen what I have seen." Bit. Obviously, it's well known and well documented just how much the showrunners are rewriting the characters in Rings of Power, making people in places they weren't, doing things they weren't, and just having personalities they never had. Elrond's now a political advisor. He's got nothing to do with the military. No, that's Galadriel, who never led armies, but now she is. And as ever in modern times, when you lift up somebody like Galadriel, that inevitably means you want to crap on the rest of your cast, just like the actress did. But despite all this, the showrunners actually have the nerve to come out and claim that this show isn't just vaguely connected to Tolkien. Oh no, the Rings of Power showrunners push back on critics' suggestions that the series isn't strongly rooted in Tolkien's work and address those Game of Thrones comparisons. And quite frankly, if you want to complain about Game of Thrones comparisons, I'm not sure how much we're to blame. If you go back to 2017 on Variety, they came out with an exclusive article talking about Jeff Bezos mandates programming shift at Amazon Studios, and it starts on its very first line. The mandate from Jeff Bezos is clear: bring me Game of Thrones. So when this has been going on since September 2017, it may be a bit late to start hitting back at it now. But the most interesting quote came from the Television Critic Association's press tour on Friday, where one of the showrunners said, "I just want to sort of quibble with the vaguely connected term. We don't feel that way. We feel like deep roots of this show are in the books and in Tolkien. If we didn't feel that way, we'd be terrified to sit here. We feel that this story isn't ours." And I don't know if you're detecting a pattern here, but we seem to be talking a lot about feelings and not that much about facts, whereas everyone else has been referring to facts. They've been bringing up paragraphs, text from the books, lines which directly contradict everything you've done. You've got people in places they never were, characters are people they couldn't possibly be, and you've invented so many new characters. At one point there was a cast interview of loads of people sitting on a couch and none of them actually existed.
We have all new characters on this couch today, I think. We don't know who you guys are playing at all.
With all of that, it doesn't really matter how you feel. The only thing that matters is truth and reality, objective things that actually existed. You can be completely deluded and have your feelings one way. Still not going to alter reality, though. Reality doesn't actually require you to agree with it. But they continue anyway. It's a story we're stewarding that was here before us and was waiting in those books to be on Earth. Which, considering they've also spoken about choosing a time period that was deliberately empty so they could fill it with their own stuff, and don't even have the rights to the books that do talk about that period in the first place. The fact that you don't feel vaguely connected isn't really here nor there. You can feel deeply and deeply connected to those books. You can work every day to be closer connected. That's how we really think about it. That's how you feel. But your feelings are entirely irrelevant. And when the current speech about your feelings directly contradicts things that you've already said in the past, the only conclusion that's safe to come up with is that you're just lying to the audience, or the journalist in this instance, and just hoping they're going to swallow it and not confront you about it. You can get away with a lot of things of just going, "Oh, it was a mistake, I didn't realise, oh, we changed this and we just didn't realise till afterwards, but now the people have come out and corrected us on it. That would have been a mistake and we wouldn't have done it, but it's too late now because we filmed the series." You could have got away with stuff like that. But when you're just lying to people, yeah, that's not a good look. And the thing is, the fact that you're just changing the base text, it's not even controversial. You see, we've got Sean Gunner here, chair of the Tolkien Society, and this is someone who will just openly discuss whether the Rings of Power actually passes the Bechdel test. He's also someone who will type bodied under someone telling someone to go and read the books when they start speaking about how Elrond has been changed from them. This is not someone, I think, who would find himself on the same side as me in many debates. And yet, when someone brought up that in Rings of Power, they're engaging with the philosophical ideas in Tolkien's writings, and everyone from the cast and crew constantly goes back to the themes in every interview, he actually replied that yes, but don't think that means that they're not going to do things we don't like. Not gonna lie, I'm nervous. And after he replied with yes, there will be changes and creative decisions made by people who have the freedom to fill in the gaps as they must, he then replied, although their creative decisions aren't just about the gaps, we've seen that already. The fact that the showrunners authors are taking things from the books and changing what is written is undeniable. And so if you've chosen an area of text deliberately so that you could fill in the gaps because you thought that this was a story that wasn't told, that you wanted to fill in, this is one that you wanted to write. You wanted to write the book that Tolkien never could. And of the bits that he did write, you're then going in and changing them as well. At that point, I have to ask, how is this not vaguely connected? And I mean factually, because your feelings are irrelevant. You can feel anything. Doesn't make it true. In fact, it just seems like you're using your feelings as an unverifiable way to mislead and lie to people. And when caught in a lie, companies tend to get very desperate. And Disney has tried this in the past with Riva, where they just decided to come out and attack all of their fans and just start claiming that everyone's just discriminatory bigots and we're all attacking people and the earth is falling, the sky is falling, and it's all the fault of the fans. It's not a tactic that's generally going to work. Annoying your entire fan base isn't generally going to get you many views. But it does get you some nice articles, it does get you a nice shield to try and make yourself feel better about the disaster that you're about to cause. But it is one that I thought most people were too intelligent to try and use for themselves. You've already seen Disney fail at it, that should be enough reason for you not to do it yourself. Although not everyone seems to have learned that lesson. And that includes Morfydd Clark, she/her, the actress that plays Galadriel. Oh yeah, she was earlier in the video, but if you thought that was the worst of it, you've seen nothing yet. There's always been an interesting duality in the marketing of Rings of Power. If you go and look at the interviews, one person is definitely at the forefront, given the most prestige, the most powerful things to say. Most of them being incredibly discriminatory. Deezer definitely seems to lead the interviews, but when it comes to advertising the show itself, in the trailers and everything, she's in the background. She's barely there at all, and from comments that know about the show, it seems that she's barely in the show, that's why she's barely in the trailers. But in the interviews, Deezer's front and center, she leads the pack. It's bait, the tactic to attract attention, to be the shield that we can use as excuse. Halo did this exact same thing. In Halo, there was lots of talk about Master Chief removing his helmet. It was a focus before the show was released, and in the first episode they did it, and 343 Industries even came out and spoke about it. This was the drama that they wanted people to talk about. This was the bait. But even at the time, I couldn't believe it. Him removing his helmet was the least of the problems in that show. It was a terrible show. The script was awful. The cast were terrible. It was boring as all hell for half the episode. There were far worse things to talk about than his helmet, but that is what people were drawn to. That is what the showrunners wanted people to talk about, his helmet, so they ignored all of the other faults. And that is what I think is happening with Rings of Power. You get someone to come out and just start saying the most insufferable things on the internet, and then when people complain about it, you do the old 1-2 punch of Disney and start attacking your fans and calling them all bigots. That's how we get to Galadriel's Instagram story, where she just got, "Everyone is sending hate to the cast members, get off my page, get off the internet, and most of all, shut up." Yeah, there were just so many people doing it that she had to broadcast it to everyone on her page. Yeah, I'm gonna tar you all with the same brush, rather than just having it being a tiny few number of people. You know, people that you may want to actually message personally, individually. People that you should hold accountable for their actions and talk to on a one-to-one basis, as would be reasonable. Oh no, instead, we're going to blame everyone with the same brush and just broadcast it. Firstly, to attract attention. Secondly, to shield from any future criticism. Oh, you don't want to talk about that person. Oh no, you can't do that. Otherwise, you'll just be tarred with the same brush. It's a very old tactic, and quite frankly it doesn't work because it's been overused for far too many years. And so at this point, the only response I really have is, who do you think you are, and how dare you go around accusing people of this? Why am I being judged just because of the actions of a tiny number of people? Why did you need to broadcast this to nearly 22,000 people because of what will inevitably be a handful of people? The only reason you would broadcast it to 22,000 people is if you actually thought that those handful of people were far more, that actually a significant number of the people that follow you are exactly the same, and that is why you had to broadcast it out to all of them. I am only responsible for what I say. I'm not responsible to anyone on somebody else's feed. People should be treated as individuals, not as some mass mob that all has to be tarred with the same brush. I'm sure that some people have said some bad things to people. Of course there will. There's billions of people on the internet. You're always going to get a few, and those people shouldn't have done it. But that is no excuse to tar the entire fan base with the same thing. And also, the reasons why it's not done individually is not just so she can feel virtuous as she sends out a nasty message to all of her followers, but because this way it's vague enough that she won't have to actually specifically say the people that she's talking about. Because that way we're likely to find out that she's not just referring to people that said bad things, but actually she's talking about people who criticize the show in general. And I'm sure those people she would absolutely love to get off the internet and shut up. You see it making our job of destroying Tolkien just that little bit harder by actually talking about it all the time. And if you're still unsure exactly how she feels about the Tolkien fanbase, well, she also did a story straight after that. Oh, how wonderful. Yes, Galadriel, known for being feminine and ladylike, also gets played by an actress that thinks that that is something you should be sending to your 22,000 followers. Maybe it's time to stop actors actually going on social media and talking to the fans, because apparently they don't seem to know how to do it, and they seem to be torpedoing your marketing at every opportunity. I mean, personally, I'd be all for not letting them be on social media contractually in the first place, but at least if you're going to do it, you should probably separate their brand social media from their own personal social media and not allow them to cross-populate the two. Because at the moment, what it seems to be is that they use their parts in these roles in order to increase their own brand, to boost their social media and get followers. And then once they've got those followers, they decide to attack them, crap all over them, and absolutely destroy the marketing for the show. That is, unless this is marketing for the show, that this is bait, that this is the shield it was always designed to be, so that people talk about Deezer and Deezer's comments, even though she's barely in the show to begin with, so that nobody talks about the other characters. Nobody talks about Galadriel and what's been changed about Galadriel. No one talks about Muriel and how Muriel has been completely changed into an entirely different person. No one talks about their story, what they're going to do together, and the fact that they never met. When there are so many problems with Rings of Power that could be talked about, but aren't, because far bigger news items are coming up all the time, far bigger disasters are coming up all the time, but those are disasters that you can very easily try and explain away by just accusing everybody of being horrible people that talk about it in the first place. And this is why you have to constantly cover this stuff, because I think it is right to actually cover what Deezer has said in her interviews in the first place.
To be part of a redress of balance is an honour.
This represents progression. This represents an acknowledgement of where we have been and a will to get to where we need to be.
These are big statements, big news items, and so should be covered. But it's also worth bearing in mind why that's being pushed to the forefront and why it doesn't make sense that a character that is barely in the show is always being pushed forward to the front. About how the showrunners see her and how the cast and crew will use that person in order to distract from their own failings in other areas. And this is why it makes the showrunners hard to believe. I mean, not only are they actively lying about what they're doing to the show, oh, we feel connected. I mean, should you? Because you're changing so much of it. You actually shouldn't feel deeply connected to it. You should feel vaguely connected to it, because that would mean you're at least based in reality and know what you're doing. So either you're deluded or lying, and quite frankly, I'm not sure which is worse. And so when you push Deezer to the forefront, despite the fact that she's barely in the show, and Galadriel comes out and just starts attacking the fans over it, I think it's a justifiable question to ask just how much of this was planned in the first place. Because your entire marketing strategy doesn't seem to have been based in quality. Right from the start with the superfans, it was all about getting people on board. It was all about convincing people. Getting people who had no idea about Tolkien to tell everyone else about how amazing it was. And then later on, you got people who did actually know about Tolkien to come in and watch more, and then tell everyone else about how amazing it was. The through line has always been that this is a perceptional battle, that you wanted to win people over without actually showing them much, that if only we can convince people that it's good, that we'll watch. It all stank of perception is reality, that if only you can convince people of something, that if only they believe it, if the perception is right, then it's true. And that's not how any of this works. That's why you perceiving that you're deeply connected to it doesn't mean anything. Because reality exists, objective reality exists, and anything else is irrelevant. Your perceptional world is irrelevant. And it doesn't matter what kind of story you create, or what you get to the reporters to drum up about it. It doesn't matter how you feel, or what you manage to convince people might be true. The only thing that matters is actual truth. Actual reality. And those facts have already been documented. We know what you did going back to that time period. We know what was written down and what wasn't, and we know what you've changed. And all of the feelings in the world won't change the simple fact that this isn't Tolkien. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe. More videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.